Hello everyone, this is Dan and welcome back. We are working on inverse functions and this time we are going with exponential functions. So if you remember what our process was, the first thing we need to do for this inverse function of f of x equals 3 to the x was to write it in terms of y equals 3 to the x. Now what we do is we swap out the x and the y's, so we have x equals 3 to the y. From here, we take the log of both sides, so we get log of x equals log of 3 to the y. But remember, when we have this log of 3 to the y, we can bring it in the front. So we got log of x equals y log of 3. Now we can treat this as a coefficient. We can divide both sides by log of 3. So we have y equals log x over log of 3. So if you remember one of our other properties, this means that we have y equals log base 3 of x. So now we want to see how we can graph this. So let's take a look and try to see what we can do. Well, before we do that, we need to remember that we need to put this in function notation. So f inverse of x is equal to log base 3 of x. So for f of x, we had 3 to the x. And well, first let's graph this and see what this looks like. So for 3 to the x, we know that when it's 0, we got 1. And at 1, we're going to have 3. And we know that since this is an exponential function, it's going to be hyperbolic. And for this, we know that we're going to have an asymptote along the x-axis. So we have our function that looks like this. And if you remember, we also know that when we graph the other one, it'll be reflected along that y equals x line. So now that we have this, we want to look at our domain and range. So our domain is going to be all real numbers. And our range, as we can see, is y is greater than 0. So this is what we can put for our other domain and the range, because remember, these swap. So that means that we're going to have a domain of x is greater than 0 and a range of all real numbers. And our inverse function was log base 3 of x. So when we graph this one, we know that at 0 it's going to be there, and we also know that at 3 it's going to be right over here. And we know that we're going to have an asymptote of the y-axis. So this comes up and across just like that. And you can see that they're mirrored across that y equals x line. And so this is how you can find out a whole bunch of information for something that was probably extremely hard to graph. I mean, a log base 3 of x, that's not really something that's easy to graph. But knowing all this information that we do about inverse functions allows us to be able to do that. And that's what makes it so powerful. So I hope you guys had fun with this, and I hope you guys learned quite a lot. We'll have 2 more questions to go through for these exponentials, and then we'll round off our inverse function series. I will catch you guys next time.